här är en idé. Och det är eran idé. Den är nästan lika världsomvälvande som den gången ni uppfann de självgående skorna.
Men den här gången är världen redo.
Viljan finns, ni börjar arbeta. Ni sätter timmarna som krävs. Ni gör rätt, ni gör fel. Ni börjar om, ni stöttar varandra. Ni gråter, ni skrattar. Ni provar någonting nytt, men ni misslyckas. Igen. Ni bestämmer er därför att skrota idén och gå därifrån. En liten del av er dör. Och det är då ni inser att den första idén inte alls var så dum så ni går tillbaka. Det är då det händer. Som en skänk från ovan kommer det till er. Det är nu ni har allt. Allt förutom oss. Vi på Innovatum Startup ger er rätt möjligheter att växla upp och omvandla idéer till framgång. Det kan vara små idéer, stora idéer, udda idéer, galna idéer. Har ni drivet och viljan? Hjälper vi er att ta det vidare till nästa nivå.
Så.
Hej! Välkomna allihopa till vårt andra och sista tillfälle av I huvudet på en investerare. Jag heter Josefin Ljungqvist och tillsammans med mina kollegor uppfyller vi drömmar på Innovatum Science Park i Trollhättan. Vårt främsta mål är att bidra till skapandet av hållbara, innovativa och häftiga bolag. Dessutom brinner vi för rymd och industriell teknik. Tidig investering är en viktig del av ett bolags framgång och fortsatta tillväxt. Vi vet också att förutsättningarna för att din startup ska lyckas ökar om du har goda kontakter med redan etablerade företag på marknaden och att dessa två faktorer ofta ligger nära varandra. Förra avsnittet, Förra programmet talade vi om effekterna av pandemin. Idag tar vi reda på vad investerarna vill ha från min startup och hur jag förbereder mitt bolag. Alldeles strax kommer vi visa en förinspelad intervju med dagens gäster. Efter inslaget får ni möjlighet att ställa era frågor direkt och live till panelen. Frågorna ställer ni via chatten och ni kan börja redan nu under intervjun. Tänk på att hålla frågorna så korta och exakta som möjligt. Alla frågor kommer ställas på engelska, men om ni inte hittar orden så kan jag översätta åt er. I chatten sitter även mina kollegor Debbie och Sonja som är affärscoacher här hos oss på Innovatum Startup och svarar på frågor som är riktade direkt till oss. Ni ser också högst upp i chatten ett pinnat inlägg som är länken till vårt ansökningsformulär. Gå gärna in på den om ni har en idé som ni vill ansöka om. Intervjun leds av en av Innovatums mest kompetenta vänner. Hon rör sig tryggt inom Investera-Sverige och är ständigt aktuell med sitt brinnande intresse för innovation och utveckling. Hon är journalist, entreprenör, ängelinvesterare och grundare av Inhouse App och Investpodden. Välkommen hit Ronja Köpke.
Tack så mycket, vilken fantastisk intro. Det känns alldeles... Gud. Ja, jag har ju partyjackan på mig för att idag är det fredag. Förra veckan, som du var inne på Josefin, så träffade vi ju Sven från KPMG och Patrik från Almi Invest och diskuterade hur covid har påverkat hela Startup Sverige. Idag så ska vi fokusera på impact med Agathe från Norrsken VC och hur man får pengarna till sin startup med ängelinvesteraren Vill. Så jag tycker att vi drar igång filmen och så möts vi efter det för frågor.
Superbra.
Varmt välkomna till Innovatums I huvudet på en investerare. I studion har jag med mig Vill, ängelinvesterare och entreprenör, grundare av Opti. Varmt välkommen hit.
Tack snälla.
Då måste jag först fråga, varför väljer man att investera sina privata pengar i andras bolag?
Ja, det är en bra fråga. Ibland ställer man sig den frågan. Faktiskt lite så här i hindsight efterhand. Nej, men det handlar nog om en kombination av att investera på ett sätt som förhoppningsvis ger avkastning. Också investera genom att känna passion för en affärsidé eller för ett entreprenörsgrundarteam. Så någonstans i skärningspunkten och för mig ofta någonting som jag känner ska bidra till någonting bra i samhället. Någonting som höjer effektiviteten eller värdet för en sparare till exempel. Eller någonting som gör någon nytta.
Jag vet ju att du är tidig investerare. Betyder det att du siktar på 10 gånger return of investment, eller har du någon siffra som du...
Nej, ja, det skulle jag säga. Ska man ha någon siffra så är det nog den siffran. Men jag skulle nog ändå säga att jag tänker väldigt sällan på det när jag investerar. Det är mycket mer kanske passion här och nu, en bra idé, härliga grundare. Alltså, klart att det handlar om att se vägen framåt även ur ett investeringsperspektiv. Men jag går nog ganska mycket på magkänsla och hjärta faktiskt när det gäller tidiga investeringar. Någonstans vet vi alla med oss att det är en hög risk med de här investeringarna. Och det är säkert så det kommer att visa sig vara för mig som det är för de flesta. 1 av 10 investeringar blir riktigt, riktigt bra och når de där 10. Och några är mediokra och en del får man helt enkelt bara lägga i byrålådan.
Tidig konkurs.
Yep.
Men du har en gedigen bakgrund inom bank och finans. Kan inte du berätta lite om det?
Ja, men jag har ju jobbat i mer än 25 år i bankvärlden med kapitalförvaltning, med investeringar. Mycket investerat i börsnoterade bolag. Vad som sen efter där någonstans 24 års erfarenhet av det 2014 så kom jag väl med till punkten att jag kände att jag vill inte sitta och köpa och sälja aktier, skiffla kapital mellan olika tillgångslag. Jag är lite klar med det, jag hade gjort det hela vägen upp, både själv som förvaltare i många år och också som chef för andra förvaltare. Lett den här typen av verksamhet, private banking, institutionell kapitalförvaltning. Men jag ville komma närmare entreprenörerna, värdeskapande tidigt, vara med, inte så att säga då bara flytta pengar på börsen, utan vara med och göra mer nytta och komma in tidigare och få vara del av de här otroligt härliga entreprenörsresorna.
Du är ju själv en väldigt härlig entreprenör med tanke på att det är du och ett gäng till som grundade robotrådgivningen Opti, som är en app där man kan investera sitt kapital och en robot tar hand om tillgångslagarna, hur pengarna ska skyfflas runt. Så det är inte en människa som behöver göra det nu på andra sidan. Varför valde du att starta Opti?
Nej, men det var en förlängning av det jag hade gjort då i storbanksvängen och för väldigt förmögna kunder, väldigt förmögna familjer, privatpersoner och väldigt stora institutioner med otroligt många miljarder. Efter att ha gjort det så såg jag att jag vill kunna göra det här, den bästa typen av kapitalförvaltning, tillgänglig för alla. För alla oss som små sparare, små kunder, vanliga människor som idag tyvärr inte får några råd. Eller så riskerar de att få väldigt dåliga råd och få betala väldigt dyrt. Jag ville skapa en tjänst som skulle ge dem den bästa oberoende kapitalförvaltningen. Och det kan man bara nå ut med om man gör det digitalt. Och då hade jag förmånen att just träffa några väldigt duktiga tidigare entreprenörer. Väldigt duktiga på teknologi, så då har vi kunnat bygga de algoritmer som ligger till grund för att kunna analysera alla fonder som finns, plocka ihop en personlig portfölj som passar dig där du är i livet, rätt risknivå som följer dig genom livet.
Oberoende nämnde du. Kan vi gå in lite på det med tanke på att om ni är oberoende så finns det något som heter beroende?
Ja.
Och vad betyder det?
De allra flesta bankerna och kapitalförvaltarna och pensionsförvaltarna idag är faktiskt det då vi kallar beroende. De har egna produkter. De säljer sina egna produkter. Är du kund hos Swedbank så kommer du nog att få ett antal Swedbank-fonder i ditt sparande. Precis på samma sätt om det går till någon annan av storbankerna eller någon av de större pensionsrådgivarna. Man säljer sina egna produkter eller också har man avtal med fondbolag och så lever man på kickbacks, provisioner som inte kommer slutkunden till godo.
Och det här har du själv varit med om? Du har ju sett det
Absolut,
hand.
Oh ja, jag har sett det.
Du vet att det här är sanning?
Jag vet att det är sanning. Oh ja, jag vet väldigt mycket av vad som pågår på insidan om de här bankgardinerna. Så att jag vet hur det funkar och jag vet därmed också hur man kan göra det annorlunda. Och vi väljer ut det som är bäst. Provisioner och kickbacks går tillbaka till våra kunder. Så vi sitter på samma sida bordet och det är det som är hela tricket. Vi tar hand om våra kunder och vi sitter på samma sida. Vi sitter inte på varsin sida och förhandlar. Det som är bra för dig som kund, det kommer också i förlängningen att vara bra för oss. Och vi jobbar med full transparens. Vi talar om vad är det du betalar oss för. Och du ser det och som sagt att vi väljer ut de fonderna som kommer att vara bäst för dig genom tiden. Vi märker också, analyserar ju alla fonder varje dag. Så vi uppmärksammar direkt om det finns ett bättre alternativ och då byter vi åt dig. Du behöver aldrig hålla koll. Du behöver ladda ner appen, svara på frågor om din ekonomi, syn på risk och sen behöver du egentligen bara koppla ett konto och sen är du klar med ditt sparande för resten av livet.
Det låter ju fantastiskt.
Bekvämt.
Men vi vet ju också att entreprenörsresor är ju sällan utan gupp så att säga och utan berg. Hur har er entreprenörsresa gått?
So far so good.
Jaså?
Nej, men i Optis fall så har vi har varit ganska metodiska i hur vi har tagit in kapital. Vi hittade tidigt 2 privata familjer som har varit med oss sedan dess. Förra året så vidgade vi det här spannet lite grann när vi tog in kapital men har fortsatt att bara jobba med privatpersoner. Min åsikt är att vi är fortfarande för tidiga för att ta in professionellt pengar. När jag lämnade SEB då 2014 så var jag partner på GP Bullhound i 3 år och sen kvar som rådgivare i 2,5 år till. Och där jobbade jag ju professionellt med venture capital, det vill säga investera. Och där var det lite annorlunda, där investerade vi ofta lite senare. Så det var ett annan typ av tänka av investerare. Men som sagt, när man är liten så ska man vara noga med vilka investerare man tar in på sin cap table. För man blir inte av med dem. Och det är inte bra att ha allt för många utan vi har försökt leva utifrån den principen i Optis fall. Inte så många. Vi vill ha investerare som kan följa med oss en sväng till kanske i alla fall innan vi kommer till punkten där vi behöver gå till mer professionella institutionella förvaltare kanske.
Ja, både du och jag vet ju det här och har pratat om det förut att bli av med sin investerare eller åt andra hållet bli av med sin entreprenör man investerat i är ju svårare än att skilja sig.
Ja.
Det är ju lättare att gifta sig och skilja sig, vilket och skilsmässa tycker ju många känns väldigt jobbigt. Men att bli av med en investerare eller den entreprenör man investerat i och helt enkelt kunna lämna bolaget kan ju vara extremt kostsamt och slitsamt och i princip omöjligt.
Och det är jobbigt, alltså ett litet bolag som kanske har 50 ängelinvesterare varav egentligen ingen kan följa med nästa gång de behöver resa kapital. Så varje gång måste de ge sig ut och leta nya investerare. Det tar jättemycket tid och kraft ifrån den tiden där entreprenörerna bara egentligen borde lägga all sin tid och all sin energi på att bygga bolaget. Men många gånger tar ju den här fundraisingen otroligt mycket tid och energi. Så att det är värt att försöka leta noga från början och hitta några som man känner kan följa med en på resan.
Och även kan bidra till styrelsearbete på ett bra sätt.
Verkligen, absolut. Och det där är ju också någonting som man ibland är väldigt beroende av, ibland inte. En del investerare vill ju absolut inte sitta i styrelser. En bra sak då tycker jag är att plocka in dem som kanske i ett advisory board som är ett informellt organ, inget formellt så att säga, styrelseansvarsorgan. Men ändå knyta dem till sig och det är också min erfarenhet att många engagerar sig gärna men kanske inte fullt ut i styrelsen. Men man behöver naturligtvis ha en professionell styrelse också så att det bästa är att hitta kombinationen. Några som vill gå hela vägen dit och andra som man kanske kan nyttja lite mer fritt.
Jag vet ju att du har investerat i mestadels i fintech och vilket kanske inte är så konstigt med tanke på att du kommer från bank och finans och förstår den branschen väldigt väl och du gillar det digitala. Men om det nu finns en entreprenör som tittar på det här och tänker att men det där passar ju perfekt, så hur ska jag då approchera Angrevelius? Hur långt ska jag kommit i min resa och vad ska vår teknologi handla om?
Ja, det där är ju en svår fråga och ofta tror jag att när du ställer den här frågan till ett gäng olika tidiga investerare så kommer du att få många olika svar. För mig är det viktigt att jag förstår företaget, att jag förstår verksamheten, att jag connectar personligt med entreprenörerna. Jag känner att liksom, wow, det här är bra killar och tjejer och vi kan ha kul ihop på något sätt på den här resan. Och sen så, det är klart att det måste vara en affärsidé som jag tror på. Och därför blir det såklart att det är liksom inom områden det är mycket enklare inom områden man kan. Jag kan finansiella sektorn. Därför är det rimligt att det är där jag har mitt fokus. Det finns många som approcherar mig med liksom helt andra, som sagt, totalt andra branscher, affärsidéer. Och det är mycket svårare. Och sen behöver jag förstå vad vill entreprenörerna få ut av mig? Vad är det för kompetens? För det är ju möjligt att det är någon helt annan verksamhet men att de de kan ha glädje av min kompetens och erfarenhet och jag kan se att jag får lära mig nya grejer. Vilket är min generella drivkraft skulle jag säga. Men så att det går inte att säga liksom att precis så här ska det se ut och jag har en checklista på 10 eller 50 eller 100 punkter som man ska bocka av. Jag är mycket mer, när det gäller alltså den här typen av investeringar så är jag mycket mer styrd av hjärta och mage faktiskt.
Ja, för jag vet ju att du har ju sagt ibland att du ska pausa dina investeringar.
Det har jag sagt till mig själv ganska många gånger. Och varje gång jag typ säger och har bestämt mig så dyker det ändå upp någonting sånt där som bara inte går att låta bli. Och där man just hittar kanske så här, man verkligen, det är en perfect match på något sätt. Så att jag säger som vanligt att mitt första svar är alltid att jag har inte tid och resurser. För det är ändå också en viktig fråga att när man har kommit lite längre sen att faktiskt känna att har man inte tid och engagemang och man ser att det är för mycket av mina andra projekt som tar tid, då gör jag både mig själv och entreprenörerna otjänst att engagera mig om de förväntar sig ett engagemang. Ibland är det ju kanske bara det är bara en peng eller för en del har det varit just inom fintech-området. Det är ju en del som, eftersom jag har varit där länge, så för en del är det av stort värde att ha med mig som en investerare. Rent för att alltså det ger legitimitet till affären på samma sätt som det gör i andra branscher med erfarna personer. Så ibland kan det vara ett sätt att hjälpa entreprenören också.
Och hur viktigt är det för dig med hållbarhetsaspekten när du investerar?
Hållbarhet för mig är det ett väldigt vitt begrepp. En del bolag touchar inte riktigt vid det där de är. Då tycker jag inte man behöver hålla på och leta och gräva efter det. Att ha rätt värderingar och ha någon typ av...
Och rätt värderingar, inte rätt värdering, utan rätt värderingar, ja.
Ja, nej men precis, alltså exakt, precis. Nej men att ha en grundfilosofi som är god i någon mening. Jag inser att mycket av det jag har investerat i och engagerat mig i handlar om att hjälpa den lilla människan på olika sätt. Ja, det är någon sorts liksom Robin Hood-känsla eller det är någonting sånt där som jag alltid går igång på att hjälpa den lilla konsumenten med kunskap eller med ett bättre sparande eller någon typ av rådgivning som man inte får på andra sätt eller en bättre tjänst helt enkelt. Och det kan ju finnas många hållbarhetsaspekter av det. Men att demokratisera kunskap är för mig till exempel en hållbarhetsaspekt i samhället. Vi kan inte ha ett samhälle som klyftorna bara växer mellan de som har. De får mer och mer och mer och de andra står helt utanför och ingen ung människa kommer in på bostadsmarknaden och såna saker. Det är inte hållbart. Så att jag tycker att kan man investera i förnyelsebar energi och man kan investera direkt såklart i många projekt som går rakt mot hållbarhetsmål. Men för mig är det kanske mer indirekt, men i grund och botten så handlar det alltid om att det ska vara bolag som bidrar till ett bättre samhälle.
Och hållbart företagande är ju också en hållbar aspekt.
Verkligen.
Som jag vet att du bryr dig om.
Ja.
Men vilka erfarenheter har du tagit nu från din entreprenörsresa som du kan applicera som investerare?
Jo, men det är ju väldigt intressant och lärorikt att titta på båda sidor om ett förhandlingsbord. Ena stunden när jag är investeraren och så sitter entreprenören på andra sidan och pitchar och försöker förklara. Nästa gång är jag faktiskt entreprenören som sitter där och ska försöka förklara och visa hur attraktivt vårt bolag är att investera i. Så att jag tror att det är generellt sett otroligt lärorikt att flytta sig runt det här bordet. Man lär sig ju argumentering. Jag vet vilka frågor. När jag är entreprenören så vet jag vilka frågor investerarna kommer att ha. Jag vet var är den ömma punkten. Här har 3 ställen där vi har kanske inte alla svar. Vi har inte alla bevis. Vi har inte fullt ut bevispunkter helt enkelt på att vi har lyckats på de här 3 ställena. Och jag vet att en professionell investerare kommer att se dem för jag skulle ha ställt frågan från andra hållet. Så att jag tror generellt sett på samma sätt som min erfarenhet från stora företag och de stora bankerna och det enorma kapitalet där och att också suttit på VC-sidan, att vara professionell VC-investerare. Jag tror nog att jag har suttit på nästan alla stolar runt ett bord och det ger mig absolut insikter och men ibland såklart det kan ta mig framåt på ett snabbare sätt.
Du som kommer från bank, kan hela den här bubblan, är det en bra grej att ta in startkapital som ett lån från en bank?
Det kan det vara, men det är jättesvårt. Det är egentligen, alltså, jag vet inga tidiga bolag som egentligen får lån. Egentligen är det jättebra om du kan låna pengar för att du ska slippa ge bort ägande i bolaget. Och jag menar, ett lån kan du alltid betala tillbaka och så blir du av med den motparten så att säga. På samma sätt som vi berörde tidigare. Det du har tagit in eget kapital från en investerare. Du blir inte av med den där investeraren annat än om den då säljer till någon annan, men det kan inte du påverka. Så det är otroligt mycket svårare att hantera eget kapital. Men tyvärr kan man väl säga så är det få förunnat som sagt för tidiga bolag att kunna låna. Kan man låna tycker jag absolut man ska låna.
Men lån kan ju också finnas en möjlighet att man inte kan betala av dem.
Oh ja, nej men det är klart att det kan bli någonting som förföljer dig då som en skuld du inte blir av med och som kan leda till väldigt tråkiga eftermälen. Alltså du får släppa med dig ett track record som du inte vill, kanske som privatperson. Så du ska ju vara försiktig med att, så att säga, hur lånar du? Är det ditt AB som lånar pengar eller är det du som individ? Eller, man får nog titta på det där från fall till fall.
Eftersom du också har suttit på VC-stolen och du är affärsängel och entreprenör. Som investerare, föredrar du att ett bolag blir uppköpt eller gör en IPO?
Jag tror inte det finns inget sådär antingen eller. Det beror nog väldigt mycket på typen av bolag. En del bolag passar jättebra som börsnoterade bolag. De kan verkligen dra nytta av att nå den här bredden av investerare. Det kan stärka deras brand. Många konsumenttjänster är såklart kan dra nytta av det där på ett bra sätt. En del kanske mer deep tech kanske har lättare att komma in i ett sammanhang i ett större bolag. Men jag tror det finns inget rätt och fel utan man får också egentligen där utvärdera de olika alternativen när man börjar närma sig punkten för exit. En börsnotering har ju fördelen med att den bestämmer du ju själv när den ska ske. Nu Ronja tar vi vårt bolag till börsen. Man kan ju sitta och vänta och bli gråhårig flera gånger om man väntar på att det ska komma något bolag och lägga ett bud på oss.
Absolut. Och avslutningsvis, har du någon pet peeve, någonting som frustrerar dig, dålig PowerPoint eller när entreprenörer approcherar dig? För mig är det när de säger om inte du investerar nu så var pengar slut nästa vecka.
Ja.
Och men
den är nog ganska avkylande.
Då blir det ett nej från mig. Ja. Har du någonting annat sånt för de som lyssnar? Learn from the other mistakes som andra redan har gjort.
Ja, men jag tror man ska jag tycker det är viktigt för min del att alltid vara ödmjuk utifrån min egen plattform och hur jag är. Och jag tror det som är motsatsen till att vara ödmjuk, men den här kaxigheten, lite den du är inne på här också. Det här är liksom din chans. Du har, it's a one time opportunity. Go ahead, nu så tar vi in pengar. Alltså den investeringen vet du att du inte ska göra.
Absolut, tack så jättemycket. Nu är det dags för Joakim Otander från Elik att ge sina 5 bästa tips för att resa kapital.
Hej, jag heter Joakim Otander och är grundare av Elik. Vi är ett Göteborgsbaserat mjukvarubolag som enkelt förklarat gör appar för energibolag. Och det innebär att energibolagens kunder kan hålla stenkoll på allt som har med energianvändningen i hemmet att göra. Och vår produkt hjälper också till att rekommendera de bästa energibesparande produkterna för just ditt hushåll. Vilket innebär solceller, elbilsladdare, smarta termostater och så vidare. Allt för att optimera energianvändningen i hemmet och bidra till ett hållbart energisystem. Vi har idag ett 40-tal anställda. Vi har kunder i 7 olika länder och vi har tagit in i runda slängar 100 miljoner i finansiering under de senaste åren. Så jag tänkte här bidra med mina bästa tips och erfarenheter av att ta in riskkapital och finansiering till ett startupbolag. Nummer 1. Fundera på om du verkligen måste ta in just riskkapital. Utgå från din produkt, hur mycket kapital kommer ditt bolag och din produkt kräva innan ni förväntas bli kassaflödespositiva. Alternativt kan få in annan typ av finansiering som exempelvis lånefinansiering. Nummer 2, ta inte in riskkapital för tidigt. Kapa alla kostnader ni kan och lev så länge det bara går på mjuk finansiering. Nummer 3, läs på och sätt dig in i hur riskkapitalet funkar. Du måste förstå riskkapitalets drivkrafter så att du inte blir besviken när de ställer krav på dig och ditt bolag. Många investerare förväntar sig 10 gånger tillbaka på sin investering. Och om du inte kan eller vill eller har ambition att nå en sån otroligt kraftig tillväxt, så kanske traditionellt riskkapital inte är någonting för dig. Mina 2 sista tips handlar om att ta in rätt investerare. Jag vet att det inte bara är att välja och vraka, såklart. Men nummer 1, försök åtminstone hitta en investerare där magkänslan är rätt. Och nummer 2, en investerare som har branschspecifik kunskap om det ni håller på med, så att de kan bidra med någonting mer än bara pengar. Tack för mig, det var mina bästa tips och lycka till där ute.
My next guest is here to talk about sustainability and impact. Welcome, Agathe Freiman, General Partner at Norrsken VC.
Thank you so much for having me.
Well, first of all, if there's anyone who hasn't heard of Norrsken, and also there's Norrsken VC and there's Norrsken Foundation, can you explain what is the difference and what are you guys doing really?
Of course. Well, at Norrsken, we believe that entrepreneurs are our best bet to solve some of the world's most pressing challenges. So we're all about enabling these impact tech entrepreneurs. Our mission is to do everything we can to really make their journeys that extra tiny bit easier or even possible. And we do that in different ways. We have Norrsken House, which is home to over 100 different impact tech entrepreneurs. They all sit under the same roof. They have access to all kinds of resources, from tax, accounting to marketing, sort of a support system, an environment where they can really thrive.
And this is in Stockholm.
This is all in Stockholm.
And also now in?
Well, work in progress to open exactly the same concept in Rwanda. And we certainly don't want to stop at Stockholm and Rwanda. The way we see it, that Stockholm was sort of, in startup terms, the MVP, our minimal viable product to really test whether, bringing everyone under one roof in this ecosystem really works. And I think we've seen that it works. So now we're ready to scale, and we want to scale this concept internationally to really enable these impact tech entrepreneurs. And so that's one area. The other big part of what Norrsken does is about events. There are event series throughout the year, and the culmination of it is Impact Week, which last time we had it brought together over 4,000 participants, from startups, investors to talent, etc. And it's all to build awareness and celebrate these impact entrepreneurs. And last but not least, to really, give a business a chance, you need money, and that's where Norrsken VC comes in place. And we just recently raised a 100 million euro impact tech fund, which is focused on investing in early stage startups.
Fantastic. And how long have you been there?
Time flies when you're having fun. I've been there for more than 3.5 years or so.
Have you already seen exits, or is it too early?
It's still a bit too early. I mean, the general rule of thumb in the startup world that it probably takes 7 years to truly see whether this became something or not. So we're early in our journey, but we definitely are seeing success stories already in the portfolio, meaning that the companies are developing nicely, showing strong growth, and are able to attract even more financing to keep growing.
Can you mention some of the companies that you invested in that we might recognize?
Of course. In total, we've invested in 23 companies, so quite a broad portfolio. And we invest across different sectors. It can be B2B and B2C. And I think by the nature of it, we tend to know more about the B2C brands because those are the household brands. And I think some of the probably best known in our portfolio would be Matsmart, e-commerce platform that allows you to buy food at really big discounts. And as a result of it, you save food that would have otherwise been discarded because it happened to have the wrong packaging or something wrong when there's nothing wrong with the underlying food. Karma is another one. Of course, I think many have heard of that, which again is a restaurant-enabled app to if a restaurant hasn't sold all their meals on a given day, you can buy it at a discount in the end of the day. Another great stories to highlight are Winning Temp. So that's more in the B2B space, which is sort of a tool that allows employers to track their employee well-being and take active steps to make sure that your employees are feeling better. Or companies like Heart or Northvolt, of course, will be names that a lot of people will recognize.
And I know that you only invest in companies that you can see will be the next impact unicorn. But what is an impact unicorn?
Good question. I guess we have to start, what is a unicorn?
That's right.
And I think, you know, the tech world celebrates unicorns, and by that I guess they mean tech companies that achieve valuation at or above $1 billion. But we don't want to stop at the ambition of finding companies that will be valued at $1 billion. Our ambition is to find companies that achieve that, and while doing that also positively affect 1 billion people. And that's what we mean by impact unicorn.
So it's both. It's not just impacting 1 billion people positively.
Exactly, it's both. It's profit plus impact. And we fundamentally believe that that's the future. It's the capitalism 2.0, where you can really see both the profit and impact.
But what is impact?
Very good question as well. It's, I mean, impact is about net positive effect or impact on the world. Every company that we invest in the end of the day, has a very tangible and measurable net positive impact on the world. And what can be that impact? That can be CO2 emissions saved, that can be well-being, healthcare and well-being, that can be education, and etc., etc. But it's really driving something. It's not just a product that has net neutral effect on the world. It actually has net positive impact on the world.
So does this mean the global goals, or do you have your own description of what impact is?
It's a mix of both. We definitely use the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals to guide ourselves, and I think it's a fantastic framework, which for the first time ever, the whole world has united behind this framework and at least has some kind of a guiding, let's say, framework. So we always make sure that the companies that we back do address at least one of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. Then we take it one extra layer further, and we use kind of theory of change model to map the impact of the companies that we back. So to give you an example, for instance, Tesla, you know, how would you really assess the impact of Tesla? You know, you would start very granularly. What can I kind of measure today? And what you can measure today is how many cars did Tesla produce? Then you kind of measure, okay, what's the impact of that? You can assume that every Tesla takes out a diesel or petrol car out of our streets. And what does that ultimately mean in terms of CO2 savings? But the underlying long-term impact of Tesla is that, I mean, these days, every major automaker in the world is rolling out an electric fleet. And that's kind of what we're after. We're after the short-term measurable impact, but we really want to find companies that actually have the potential to create this systematic change where they're pulling everyone else alongside them.
So if there's a startup right now who's watching this thinking, hey, I can do this, how do they approach you? And how do they approach you versus another VC?
I mean, I think the approach methods are probably not that different. Again, just reach out. We're approachable, we're open, and we want to hear from you. Probably the one difference between us and any other VC in the space is that you have to start with the impact, you know, that if you send us an email, put the impact in the subject, in the title, because that's really what we're looking for.
So how does a meeting go with you? Like, what kind of questions do you ask to ensure that this is real impact, real sustainability, not just greenwashing or just talk?
I mean, it's always about really understanding the impact. I mean, we want to find companies that have impact at the very core of the business model, so that you can really say that, you know, for every unit of sales, there is also a unit of impact, and you can't really decouple the two. And the other test that we always apply is sort of, you know, if you wanted to kill the impact in this business, I mean, would you kill the business? Would it survive? And it's very important for us that it's sort of, you really, impact is there to stay. Because again, startups never end how they started. They pivot, they twist and turn, and it's so often that, you know, you invest in one product and it ends up looking completely differently. But what's important for us is that no matter what you do, you could never take out the impact out of the business model.
Great. So you were talking about it a little bit in the beginning, but if we go more into what is Norquin's long-term goal, how do you truly measure in 10 years or 50 years from now that you succeeded?
Yeah, in many ways. I mean, one is about that, you know, we think that role models play a huge role. You know, we celebrate the tech entrepreneurs of our decade, and we all look up to them. But we haven't really celebrated impact tech entrepreneurs. So, I mean, one underlying goal is let's enable these impact tech entrepreneurs, and then let's celebrate them. So one very obvious way to measure us in the long term will be just to look at, okay, how many of these impact unicorns did we enable throughout our journey? When it comes to us as a fund, our mission is twofold. Of course, we create impact with every underlying investment that we make, but our overreaching goal is that we really want to prove that there is really no contradiction between creating positive impact and generating financial returns. And if we succeed in doing that, we really think that we can shift how capital markets think. Because up until now, impact has always been this tiny, tiny thing that you do on the side because you want to give something back. But that doesn't have to be the case. We could actually be investing our pension fund savings into impact generating companies. But to unlock that, we need to first create the track record that that's really possible. And I think if we succeed in doing that, many more will follow us, and ultimately much bigger chunk of the capital markets will start to go into impact investing.
How do you make sure, since I know that you're very involved with your startups and your companies that you do invest in, how do you make sure that it isn't greenwashing? Since this is something that we're talking more and more about, that it's just a facade. You were talking about, well, can we take is there still a business if we take the impact out? But besides that, how do you make sure that it's legit?
No, it's about those tests, but it's also a big part of our due diligence. It's always about talking to experts in the industry. I mean, to be honest, it has happened to us where a company will pitch to us and we kind of intuitively will think, this sounds like an impact company. I believe they have a net positive impact on the world. But then you start to poke and you speak to certain experts in the market and they say like, you haven't thought about the fact that this triggers this, and hence actually the net impact is negative. So it's always about doing your homework and relying on people that are sometimes smarter than yourself.
Interesting. Will you take a seat at the board?
For us, it's not one size fits all. We sort of really try to assess what makes sense. Does the company need us on the board? Do they want us on the board? Do we have the best expertise to serve them in the best way? What often happens is that we get the right to the board seat, but we look at our team and we say like, actually, we probably would be better off pulling in some kind of external expert and kind of delegating that board seat to someone else. So it's really about what makes sense.
Fantastic. And again, the best way to reach you, email? Or?
Email.
Fantastic. If you want to contact Norrsken VC, make sure to send them an email. Thank you so much for joining us in the studio today.
Thank you for having me.
Make sure you send your business idea to Innovatum for your chance to participate in Innovatum Incubator Program. Thank you so much for watching.
Så, välkommen tillbaka allihopa. En fantastiskt intressant intervju måste jag säga. Jättespännande. Och nu har jag också koll på vilken kamera som jag faktiskt ska titta in i. Jag ber om ursäkt för detta som hände lite tidigare. From now on, all the questions will be held in English. Okay, so I also need to welcome, of course, again, the great panel. I have Ronja with us that you have already talked to today, and also Ann Grivelius, investor, entrepreneur, and board pro. We also have Agathe Freimane, general partner at Norrsken VC. Okay, Ann, you are a very busy woman. I know that you need to leave us around 1 o'clock. So if there are any questions directly to Ann, please approach that in the chat function and we will try to catch her before she needs to run away again. Ladies, let's go. Okay, I will start with the first question. How should a startup think when looking for an investor? How can a startup find and compare different investors? And how can you make an assessment of whether the investor is right for you? Ann, should we start with your answer?
Gosh, that's a really big question. I would say first that there is no one solution that fits everyone, that fits every kind of startup or every kind of entrepreneur. I think you could also always have a look at similar companies. Since I look a lot into fintech companies, I mean, that's a community for that area. I know, like for Norrsken, when it comes to impact and things like that. So I think you could start in that, start somewhere there. And then, I mean, then it's the same more or less for everyone. I mean, you should decide if you're looking for how much capital you are looking to raise. Is this your first kind of fundraising process? Then perhaps you're looking more into approaching angels, private investors. If it's later on, of course, it might be excellent to look into some kind of, I mean, like Innovatum, I mean, some kind of program where you might get advice as well as some kind of capital. Almi can be a good partner early stage, and then of course also certain venture capital firms. So it's complex, and it's no one answer. It's not always that easy. But look at other companies. I mean, do your research and see how similar companies have funded themselves.
Great. Agatha or Ronja, do you have anything to add to answer?
I mean, I think that's a great answer, and maybe the only perspective I could add is that, kind of when do things go wrong between the entrepreneur and the investor? And usually things go wrong when you're not on the same level of exactly what you're trying to achieve, or there is some kind of an expectation gap. So for instance, if you're very early stage, then you probably want forgiving angel investors who really understand your mission. They understand why you're trying to do what you're doing, and they might be a little bit more forgiving if you make mistakes along the way. Let's say if you go after a VC investor, I mean, VC investor by definition will demand fast growth scenario from you. And if you don't want to run that fast, then at first place you shouldn't go to a VC kind of investor. Instead, then maybe you should look for other kinds of capital, which could be more strategic, or that could allow you to choose different paths. So I would say really understand the expectations of the investors, because if there is misalignment in expectations, that's kind of where the relationship breaks down between the founders and the investors.
I can add another thing is that there's a trend in capital right now, and it has been for the past few years. And I meet a lot of companies who want to raise a lot of money very early, even though they don't really have a finished product or service or even an app, if that's what they want to develop. So I want to encourage people to bootstrap for as long as possible and focus on your customers. Because if you can get money coming in from your customers, that also means that you have someone who will buy your product, which will make you way more attractive to investors as well. So it's not, I met some startups lately that they have an idea, the idea is great, but they're running to investors the first thing that they're doing, and maybe focus more on building what you have and bootstrap in the beginning if you can, to make sure that you get the most of the capital when you get it.
Yeah. And if I can just, I mean, that's a very good advice, Ronja. And I think that is something that every startup should really think about. Wait as long as you can, because then you will also have raised the value of your company. It's a very different thing to just have a PowerPoint, or if you have, I mean, worked with the company a year, maybe two, and maybe more like a hobby project from start. But then you have actually some kind of traction. You might have clients, you might have sales, you might have something to show that, can say that, I mean, your business idea is actually vivid and valid. And then also on the point from Agatha, I think also remember that if you take capital from a professional investor like a VC company, you will have to start reporting monthly, a lot of KPIs, and you will have to have, information meetings. They will probably, most of them will want to be on the board, and it might be just too early for you to take that step. So it's a lot of things to think about, not just getting the money into your account.
I can also add that make sure that this is something that you really truly want to do on a personal level. That this is the one thing that you really want to spend your life doing right now. If there's any other job out there, any other career that you can go for, do that, and you'll have the safety net and free time and weekends and all those things that you'll probably have to say goodbye to for quite a while now if this is the road that you're taking, because this is super intense. There will be so many demands on you, and you will not be able to sleep well at night if you cannot deliver. And when you're sitting there writing that report once a month saying, yeah, guys, this is not going well, sorry, but we need more money. So just make sure that this is something that you are truly passionate about. This is the one thing that you want to do. It's almost like a rock star dream, right? Very few will make it and go all the way. So just keep that in mind.
That's a very good point, Ronja. I always joke with my founders that, they've really chosen the hardest job description. It sounds so glorifying to be your own boss, but in reality, being a founder is literally the hardest job description you could possibly have. And another thing I always say when I joke with them, I said that, well, today you're working a lot harder, but I guess you work a lot harder today so that you can retire earlier. So there is the trade-off somewhere if you go ahead and if you truly succeed.
Thank you. It sounds like passion and timing is very highly recommended when you do this journey. I will move on to the next question. How do you, as an investor, view the social benefits, environmental benefits versus pure economic benefits of investing for yourself? Anyone that feels that this is my question directly?
Maybe given that Norrsken is an impact-driven investor, by definition, everything that we invest in, we really look that, in addition to profits, or I shouldn't even say in addition, it's the equation starts that we want to invest in businesses that have some kind of positive impact on people or planet. And we really believe that in order to create a lot of impact, you need to be able to scale your business. And you scale your business if you have a good business model, if you have a profitable business model that allows you to attract even more money to your business, and as a result, really scale the impact. And I generally would say, I think the whole world is moving into the direction where we're no longer looking at financial returns in isolation. And I think it's a trend that's been coming really top down from some of the world's biggest asset managers like BlackRock putting their foot down and saying we're the biggest asset manager in the world. But going forward, we will look at ESG factors as well as financial factors. So I really think that it's no longer the trend. It's really something that's already happening today.
Yeah, I agree. Absolutely. It's really, you have this ESG trend from, impacting and affecting every kind of financial decision and kind of business today. When it comes to, an angel investor perspective, I think it's very different. I think that also, a way of sustainable business has to be profitable business in the long run, not from start, but so somehow, every startup is kind of focusing on some kind of sustainability, because financial sustainability is also sustainability, not just, environment and fossil fuels and things like that. But I think, it is important. Kind of values are very important for me. And for me also, I do focus on democratizing knowledge, which is very important, especially when you're talking about the finance industry and savings and investments, because I think it's we do have a problem that many people and many women, I mean, they don't take interest in their investments and savings, and thereby, I mean, we do get a very bad balance between those who are able to take financial decisions that are good for them in the long run, and those who don't do it.
I am very happy that we are heading in a direction of where impact is, I want to say, almost the most important thing now. It's the thing that we discuss the most, for sure. And my first investment wasn't necessarily an impact investment, but my last one was. So, I mean, that is, for me, it's very clear that's where I'm going. That's what's important to me. And I already had values that Anne was talking about from the beginning, that I would never invest in anything that was harmful to our planet or to people. But impact investment is good investment, and we know that if more people, we know that impact investments is also have a better return on investment. So it's not like anyone is choosing anymore between impact and investing to get a good return on their money. It is a good investment to make money.
Great. Anne, you have a long experience within financing. We do have a question that says, how long does the financing process take? If you need capital within 6 months, when should a startup start contacting potential investors?
Yeah, and the short answer is it always takes a lot longer than you think. So you should have always started yesterday. It takes a long time. If you need capital, I mean, in 6 months, it's really get started today.
Nice one. Okay. Is there any good tip for how to find private angel investors with branch insight in the platform economy for an impact startup? How about that, Agathe?
Yeah, I'm thinking for a good answer. If I understand the question correctly, then it's sort of how to find impact angel investors. And I would say, I mean, Sweden in general is a really tight-knit ecosystem and community, and all it takes is to start to speak to the first person. And my advice is that even if you get a no at the end of the meeting, you can always ask, who else do you think I should be talking to? Who might understand this industry or product, in a good way? And then usually it's like one person leads to next person, leads to third, fourth, and fifth person. So the most important thing is that you need to find one person, and that one person hopefully you can find someone who can give you a warm intro, but don't be scared to reach out and cold email approach people, or LinkedIn, or just send them a cold email. Yes, you're not going to get 100% hit rate in terms of who responds, but someone in that bulk will respond, and all you need is one meeting to get the ball rolling, and it will snowball from there.
I think that's very good. And also, I mean, like Norrsken, I mean, you do have the events that you mentioned, and also Ronja, I mean, you have been involved in many different kind of investment networks.
Yes, I was thinking about if I know a network that necessarily only focuses on impact, and I am not sure that there is one. But what I know for sure is that no angel investor in Sweden would say, no, I would never invest in impact. So that's the part. And just like Agatha said, I mean, this is a tight community. Just ask the first person. And even if that person doesn't reply on LinkedIn, I mean, usually an angel investor is also a pretty busy person. Maybe founded their own company, invested in several companies, maybe have another data, who knows? So don't get discouraged from not getting a reply. Just try again with the next one. And when you meet the angel investor in person, or maybe now online, make sure that you vibe and understand each other's values. there's one thing that I got to talk before about expectations, and it's super important that they add up, but also your values, so that you're heading in the right direction together. So it's not the most important thing for me. I want as much money as possible in the end, and then maybe for you is that you want to create a better world, and how do we measure that? We want to make sure that we're on the same side here, and having the same goals. So I think that any angel investor you would approach, especially maybe on the younger side, I work with a lot of older men and they're great. But I feel like impact is something that they have been considering maybe the past few years. And I feel that the younger generation have cared about impact for a longer time, that it's been something that is just a core value, if that makes sense. So.
I really think it does make sense. Thank you. Is it more difficult to search for financing and investment if your idea is an open source?
I don't think so. That can also be an edge. Today, kind of the more tech-savvy investors will know what open source means and what kind of multiplier effect and network effect that could give your business. So I certainly don't think that you should be scared from being an open source business. What it takes is to, again, talk to the right investor who truly appreciates the value of it being open source. But I think we have enough case studies out there in the market that really indicated the fact that, just the very nature of being open source can be the very key to why you become successful.
Yeah, I would say also, it can be a very powerful tool. So that might, bring interest from investors. Still, of course, you always have to think about how you're going to fund your business, even if it's an open source.
Great. Okay. Anne, I know that you need to run very shortly. Do you have any tips to our startups sitting out there? How should they approach to you? Or how should they do when they are pitching their idea for you?
I think, probably, like LinkedIn is a very good way to connect to people. So I would say just contact me there. And but then I know I have pushed this before, that I have to feel not only that it might be a terrific team, a terrific business idea, but it has to be something for me to engage personally. It has to be something where I feel that I can contribute in something more than just the financials. That's for me very important, and I am also very humble about what businesses I can understand, what my experience can be value for the entrepreneurs. So if there is industries and businesses that I don't really see how I can contribute, then we should not waste each other's time. But you can always get, if I can be of any help in connecting or just giving tips into, contacting other investors, private or organizations, or just give some kind of advice, I would love to do that.
Sounds perfect. And thank you so much. Someone was also asking, what bank should startups choose if they have the ambition to grow? Anything they need to consider when choosing a bank?
Hard question. I think if you have any it doesn't really matter what bank you all banks are quite similar. I would say that SEB, which is the bank where I worked when I left the banking sector, they have put a lot of efforts into entrepreneurial initiatives. So if you can, I mean, if you just choose from that point of view, I would say, I mean, look into that. But it is more important if you have any personal banking contact, anyone who knows you at a bank. I would say that that is much more important in that kind of choice. So if you have a bank, branch close to you where you live, if you are a personal client at the bank, start there.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Anne, for taking this time, and have a lovely afternoon and a nice weekend. We will see each other again.
Yes,
Bye,
absolutely.
Anne.
Thank you so much, and have a nice weekend, all of you.
Thanks. Okay, so we will continue with Ronja and Agathe. We still have many questions, so that's really nice. It's nice to see that people are really eager to know more. Okay, we will start with this one. This is actually for you, Agathe. Is Norrsken interested in companies that manufacture consumer products that replace fossil raw materials with new biomaterials?
We certainly could be. It's hard to know more from that brief sentence, but generally what we're after is that we want to back businesses that have truly global potential and that can scale quickly and can roll out. And of course, that's kind of why a lot of what we do is in the technology, because the beauty of pure kind of software technology is that you can just, with a pressing a button, you can scale incredibly quickly. You can go from one market to another. But having said that, I mean, we realized that if you only did software technology only, software in the end of the day is about incremental efficiencies. And of course, the efficiencies can take us far. But ultimately, to really have the breakthrough innovations, we also need to innovate something in the physical matter. And hence, we're also open to those kind of solutions, because we think that some of the next breakthrough solutions will come exactly from that.
Perfect, thank you. Okay, next questions. Any tips for me who wants to find potential investors specialized in skincare and makeup industry? Ronja.
Specific investors? Wow, that one is hard. First of all, makeup needs a lot of money to develop. I know that Victoria Silvstedt has invested in another company focusing on makeup, and I know that they're doing really well from what I've seen. So Victoria Silvstedt might actually be an option, but she might be very hard to get a hold of.
I can imagine. Do you need to think, I mean, do most investors feel like they need to invest in a specific area, or could it be like makeup, depending on what the makeup is made from, for example? Maybe that's more important than makeup itself.
I mean, generally, I'd say like also depends whether.
Svante?
I am still here, but I wonder if we lost Agathe.
Now I can see you as well, Ronja. I lost all of you for a moment there. But I think that I see you now, Ronja. Is that right? Can you hear me, Agathe?
I'm here. But I think we lost Agathe. But okay. To add to her answer while we're trying to get her back, to your question there, yes. Let's say that you managed to create makeup that is super cruelty-free, vegan, and it's made from substances that is definitely not harmful and maybe even helpful, then that's of course very interesting, because the time is now for that. That's the kind of products that we want. But even if that is something that well, maybe you're thinking now it's been around for a while, but it can always get better. But it's still very expensive. And if you're going down the road of attracting angel investors, you might need a whole lot of money before you can go to a VC. Oh, Agatha, you're back. I was just going to add to your answer a little bit. Since we lost you.
Yeah, no,
Okay.
I was. I didn't hear. I think I heard parts of great additions, but I would say like it's generally again. It depends whether you're after angel investors or professional kind of VCs. And I think professional VCs, many are industry agnostic, so they don't necessarily have to be experts in makeup or branding. But when it comes to angel investors, you have to remember that angel investors always invest more with heart, not necessarily with a very rigid investment committee report or something like that. And then usually what really triggers entrepreneurs, angel investors, is that either they just really believe you as a person and it's almost irrelevant what industry you're in, or on the other hand, they like to invest in the industry that they know and understand well, so that they can really relate to the product and get excited about, potentially bringing this product to life.
And this market is very, very crowded. So you need to be very clear on what makes you better than any other brand out there. And a lot of good brands that has popped up the past few years. So make sure that you're really, really clear on why you're the best brand there is in the entire world. And then you can convince any angel investor, I'm sure.
Great. So you really need to be convinced. Then you might catch the investors no matter what business you're in.
Well, not just convinced, but have a very clear edge and have something that is very different from all the rest.
Stand out. Okay, we will move on to the next question. How many shares in a company will an investor normally ask for at the time of a first investment generally? What is reasonable? Agatha.
Sorry, what share investors will ask?
How many shares? Yeah.
I've seen in sort of for the first rounds, sometimes you'd say like once you enter the VC world, the rule of thumb is that with every round of financing, you probably sell down 20 to 25% of your company. For your first ever financing round, if you're doing it with angels, it can be more flexible. I have seen anywhere from 10% to 30%, but I would definitely advise do not go above 30%, because in the end of the day, if you don't give up more than 30%, in the early days, because if you are going to scale the business and keep attracting more money into it, one thing that is really important for investors like myself is that when I enter the company as an investor, I still want to know that the control sits with the founder and the CEO, because what I want to avoid is that another investor suddenly has more power than the founders. So you really need to plan, and it depends how much more money do you think your business will need. If you think that you'll need another 5 rounds of financing, then be very careful not to sell too much stake early on. If you think that your business is high margin and you'll reach profitability very quickly, then maybe you can afford to sell down more in the beginning, because you know that soon enough you'll have enough cash coming into the business to finance your growth.
Ronja, anything to add? Perfect answer.
Perfect answer. Yeah, I mean, my first investment, I bought, I think, 5% of a company. And then there's been anything where I've seen rounds in the beginning, just like I got to set up to 30%. But it's always better to try to keep it on the lower side to make sure that you have as much ownership as possible. So just as Agatha said.
Thank you. Okay. Is there a difference in company valuation depending on where the company is based? I have heard that companies based in Stockholm get a double valuation compared to company with similar technology based in, for example, Skåne.
Yeah, it's the sad truth. It is correct. There shouldn't be difference in theory, right? If you have equally capable founders and equally exciting technology or business proposition. But as with anything, the open market is always about the supply and demand. And of course, places like Stockholm have a lot more willing investors. So, if you start to set one investor versus another investor, you can achieve much higher valuation just because you have more bidders, the same mechanism as when you buy a flat. And equally in some of the smaller regions, there are plenty of exciting investment opportunities, but it's just not as many investors are looking at them. And again, by this pure nature of supply demand, exactly like in a property market, that unfortunately often means lower valuations.
And it also has to do with a company that is set in Stockholm has probably higher rent, probably needs to pay a little bit more in salaries to make sure that their employees want to stay well, and also are able to live in Stockholm, because it is a little bit more expensive in the big cities. So there are quite a few different factors that goes into this. But just as Agatha said, it's a competition. I've met some very successful companies now who had so many angel investors who wanted to invest, and they could just pick and choose, and that made the valuation go up like crazy. So if you have that network of investors, but that doesn't necessarily mean that if you are not in Stockholm that you can't get a higher evaluation. It depends on your network. So even if you're somewhere way up north maybe, and you contact investors in Stockholm, you can still get that evaluation. It just depends on the competition, just as Agatha said. So it's not like it's impossible just because you're not here in Stockholm.
Okay, good to know. So it's important that you have many investors interested in your company. Then you will also have a higher valuation, as well as as where you're based. Okay, next question. What are the top 3 important factors that contribute to an investor choosing to invest or choosing not to invest? Ronja.
Top 3, why I choose to invest. Well, for me, now it is impact. It has to be part of it for sure. Even if it's not, say, an impact company, it still has to have a very, it cannot be harmful to the planet, to people, to anything. For me, not even animals or, so definitely impact. And I have to like the entrepreneurs that we're gonna hang out for a few years. So it's a good thing if we like each other and can have a laugh together and understand each other. So when we have a conversation, we get along. And third thing I would say is, well, reasonable valuation. That's also, of course, impossible. It doesn't matter how much I like an apartment, but if I can't afford it, I can't buy it. Or if it doesn't make sense that it's the most expensive apartment and there are others that look the same in the same area, and I can buy that. So just evaluation is also part of it for sure. And it also shows that you know what you're doing, because I've met some entrepreneurs which is kind of great. They're just going for it and they're presenting with like mile high evaluation just to see if it will fly. But it also shows me that it's not a reasonable plan. And then we have to go through some other questions just so I can see that you do have a reasonable plan for everything else.
Yeah, no, I completely agree with that. And I think from my side, I know it's going to sound cliche because, every investor probably says that, but for with every additional year that I spend in this in this profession, being a VC investor, you just realize over and over again that team trumps everything. And I can say I personally made the mistakes where you recognize that, wow, this is a massive, big industry. It's a fantastic product. And you think that the product or the industry will take care of everything. But unless you have a team that is really the top notch at executing and running as fast as they can, it's not going to fly. So for me, it really comes down to one criteria. It's really the team, because without the right team, it just can't succeed.
And then also for both of us, of course, return of investment. There has to be money coming back in the end.
Now, of
Reasonable.
course,
Okay, thank you. Is it enough that the business idea is tested on the market, or must your business have started sales and earning money so that it is interesting for an investor?
Well, for an angel investor, you don't have to have customers yet. Angel investors very often invest as an idea. Maybe you have an app that is not yet used by anyone, or maybe it's even just a presentation, a PowerPoint. But the more you have, the easier it is for an angel investor to understand what it is you're doing, if you're doing it well, and if it has a future. So if you've tested it on the market, that's of course is better, and you will get a higher valuation, and you will have more investors that are interested. But to get to VC, you will have to come a bit further first.
I mean, we're still early stage investor, and we'll invest earlier than a lot of the other VCs. But we also like to see the product at least tested on some kind of a small scale. That there has been a pilot that we can validate a little bit how the customer is engaging with the product. I mean, from time to time, we may make exceptions and invest in extremely early, pre-product launch, pre-revenue. But I would say that it really then takes something extraordinary, that either you're a serial entrepreneur or there are other, it's a massive mega trend that we as an investor want to tap into. But I would say the norm for us is that you have at least kind of dipped your toes in the water.
Sounds great. If you have an idea that can help social welfare, it can be difficult to find customers. How does an investor see the possibility to support a company that has a longer start stretch in the form of upphandling or procurement? Agata, have you seen any of the companies with you that are in this welfare business?
It's if I understand the question correctly, it's really about, I guess, companies that have a slower start, and if we see those kind of examples, and I think there are many examples. I mean, there are some companies that we have invested that, contrary to what I said, that you want to test your waters, test your product before investor comes in. I mean, for instance, we've made bold bets like electric airplanes that could still be 5 years away from commercialization. So I don't think investors are scared to go in knowing that they will have to be patient, but they have to know that if they are patient, you're really gonna that the opportunity is huge. So in other words, that it's worth waiting. Yes, it might take me 5 years to truly develop this R&D product or develop these incredibly difficult AI algorithms or something. But once I crack it, then the market size is really unlimited, and that's what makes you excited as an investor to take that bet, and why you want to be patient.
All investors know that patience is key. So it doesn't come as a shock to us that it will take years for an exit to come for us. I don't know who asked this question, but you said that, well, it's going to take us a long time before we have customers. It always takes a long time, and then other things will happen along the way. So it can take up to 10 years, and we know that, but we are happier if it happens a little bit faster than 10 years to get to an exit. So we are always very aware that everything takes a long time. But just as Agata said, if it's worth waiting for, we're happy to wait.
Mm.
Good. That leads me to the next question. How do investors look upon first-time entrepreneurs? For example, me, who have a big dream and passion for an idea, but no relevant experience with a startup.
That's fine. I mean, we're all starting somewhere. You might not get to the top investors right away because you don't have a resume, showing us that you've done this before and you know how. But everyone starts out somewhere. So if you do have experience in the field, that say you're starting a company, a clothing company, let's say, and you're designing clothing before, or something that shows that at least that you know something about the business, and then you learn as you go. I know that there's one company that it started as an UF-företag when they were 17, Färsking. And I was so impressed. They did so well. And I think it took about a year. And then they, had deals with all the big brands in Sweden, like food. I mean, everything is possible. So we're not turning you down because it's your first time, but you do have to prove yourself.
I mean, the hardest thing about being an investor is that it is so subjective. How do you assess an entrepreneur? Because it's not that they come always in exactly the same shapes or forms. You have entrepreneurs that are extroverts, that are fantastic salesmen that go on to be successful. You also have very successful entrepreneurs that are very deep introverts. So there's really no one profile. And why you often hear in the market, when people say like, that as a first-time founder, I can see how it can be annoying when you hear things like, we back serial entrepreneurs. Of course, not everyone is born a serial entrepreneur. You have to get there. But you have to understand kind of why investors do it, because it's so hard for us to read objectively what you're about. And then the only objective thing about you as a founder is your track record, your history, what you did before. So, and what are you doing now? So even if you're not a serial entrepreneur and maybe you haven't been inside of the startup, but how you could still convince me that you're a person worth taking a bet on is by showing that you're a hustler, that things are happening, things are moving fast. And the right way to engage with that is that, again, establish an early contact. I love meeting founders early. You establish the early contact. And then I was like, okay, I don't really know who you are, but I'll give you the benefit of doubt. Again, I meet you 6 months later and you tell me that, wow, in 6 months I have achieved this, and this. Then I, as investor, straight away, my thinking is like, wow, if you can achieve this in 6 months, wow, imagine what you can do if I gave you more money, more capital, and more time. Then it almost seems like sky's the limit for you. So I would say like, that's kind of think about it, that we don't really have many ways to assess you objectively, and the only way we can assess you objectively is by what you're doing today and what you have done. And those can also be shorter time increments. They don't need to be the last 10 years. It could be, what did you do in the last 3 months? How far did you come from pitch deck to some kind of MVP version of your product?
And also, if this is your first time, you probably have a lot of energy, and you will need energy to do this. So serial entrepreneurs have connections, their network, they have experience, which is crucial and so important. But if this is your first time, and as we talked about before, if you're super passionate and this is the only thing in the world that you truly, really want to do, like become a rock star, right? Then you will have the energy to do it. So just as Agatha said, you can get a whole lot done in 6 months. Show us.
Great. Just show us. This is a question for Norrsken, for you, Agatha. I need to apply in English. My idea has a positive impact, opens new markets, has potential to reach out to millions, and is descriptively in a necessary way. But my English isn't very good. How important is English language? Can I get some help?
Of course. Of course you can. We're a diverse and international team, and majority of my colleagues are Swedish, so we can definitely still process the information and listen to what you have to say, even if that's in Swedish.
But I should say the English language overall, when it comes to pitch for both money or other help, isn't English quite important in the startup business?
Yes. It is.
Yeah,
I mean, if you're going abroad to meet VCs, you need to be able to pitch in English. So start practicing and write a script and practice that. So it's like a monologue when you're pitching. You know what you're going to say, and you'll get better. You will get better so quick, I promise. Because as soon as you're in this bubble and everybody speaks English, and you'll pick it up everywhere. And as soon as you know how to describe your product and know all the fancy words that we might use, yes, you need English, but you will figure it out. It will not take a long time. It will help you, for sure.
Yeah, and maybe I would add that I would say, kind of guess estimating right now, but probably 90% of pitch decks that we get from Swedish startups are anyway in English from the start. And to some extent, it's also this indicator of your ambition level that, if the deck is in English, that means that you're after the world. If your initial deck, even approaching Swedish entrepreneur, approaching Swedish investor, if it's in Swedish, that straight away sets the limit. It's like, okay, right now you're not really thinking outside the borders of Sweden by definition. So it's also a way to signal your level of ambition.
I agree.
Good advice. Okay, are there new perspectives or investment criteria coming from female investors contra male investors in the investment community?
Sorry, can you repeat that question? I didn't really hear it.
Are there new perspectives or investment criteria coming from female investors contra male investors?
Yes. I would say so. And I mean, we have this thing called femtech that wasn't heard of before. And I know a lot of female investors that are investing in, women health products and sex toys or what have you, that are they're developed for women by women, and then backed by female investors. So, women are changing the game for sure. And I feel, this is just my personal opinion, but I feel that women have cared more about impact, equality, and all of those things for longer than, say, your average male, older guy investor. So I feel that women are definitely changing the whole game now. So even if it's not like a new criteria, the game is changing because more women are taking the space. So, yeah. Or what do you think, Agatha?
Yeah, I think, of course, the investor kind of universe, or us as an industry, we still have to do a lot better around diversity. And of course, it is still male dominated. But I think that these days there have been so many research reports that have come out and said that, for decision making, you need different perspectives and different eyes on it. And if you only have men looking at a certain pitch deck, they'll only get the opinion of the 50% of the population. You really need a male and a female looking at a pitch deck to really get the full picture and to really be able to assess whether that has potential. So I do think that there are differences, how men and women look at things, how they perceive things. And that's why every, investor, or I think any organization for that matter, really has to invest in building diverse teams so that you don't miss either of the perspectives.
I mean, we have a history of men creating products for women, right? Christian Louboutin, who has been doing female heels that are super uncomfortable and very expensive. They're made by a man because he loves women, I'm sure. But we do have a history of men creating things for women. It's something that we will pay for. And a few years ago, a man pitched in front of me. He was 50 something, and he said, "I know what women 30 wants, and it's this." He had invented an app. And I said, "I think I'm the only one who's female and third in the room. Only men in the room, pretty much. I think we're like 3 or 4 women. And it's something that no woman 30 would ever want to use because it was sexist and just very inappropriate. But he was so sure that he had created something that women will want, women 30. So he would have had, if he would have had a woman on his team, she could have said no. they are not going to want this because I will not want this and my friends will not want it. And he would not even have been in the position of pitching to us. So diversity is the most important thing right now in a team, for sure.
And I think that sums up this event, actually. Ronja and Agate, if you can just give one tip to the viewers today, if they want to meet you, how should they approach?
LinkedIn.
Same here. LinkedIn, email.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And I think that I speak for both of us when I say, please don't get offended if you don't get a reply. Because I know Agate is super busy working long hours and sometimes there are just a lot of messages. It doesn't mean that we're being rude, that we don't love you. It's just that we're trying to prioritize our time as well. And then if you're not going to reply now and you've done well and in 6 months, contact us again. And then maybe that time it will work out.
Yeah, I guess also that generally goes for us or any investor in the world or any door that you're trying to open. If you're shy away after after the first try, then maybe you're not cut out for the journey of the entrepreneurship. The journey of entrepreneurship is knocking on the same door over and over again until you get the answer that you want. Having said that, with all the best intention to reply to you as soon as possible, but remember that even if sometimes it can take a few knocks, and unless you're willing to do that, you shouldn't go into kind of a career that is always an uphill battle.
With a lot of no's, for sure. You need to fix it. But I can say that I know for a fact that, Norrsken, amazing investors, and Angre, who was on earlier, she's an amazing investor. So if you contact them and even get them on board, congratulations. Then you will have, one of the best people in the world to help you out. So make sure that you are pitch ready when you do contact them, and make sure that you have come far along enough so that you are ready to really raise money. And good luck.
Yeah, and I can't wait to hear from you.
That's perfect. Thank you, Ronja and Agate, of course. The event is over, but we are still here. If you do have any question that hasn't been told in this event, please give us a call or send us an email. And don't miss out to apply for the incubator program, of course. Take care, everyone, and good luck with the investments. Bye.
Bye. Bye.